next cart ready. Keep the line moving. Heavy one coming through. Cut down at the base the moment the fruit is picked. The trunk that grew your breakfast becomes garbage within the hour. Something to burn.
Dump or drag out of the way. Most farmers see it and see nothing but a problem. But get that same trunk into a factory fast enough and it stops being trash.
It becomes fiber, then thread, then rope, fabric, rugs, bags.
Even the kind of luxury goods nobody would ever guess started life as garbage.
Here's the number behind it. For every ton of fruit picked, farmers are left holding 3 to 4 tons of that same soaking.
Fibrous stem with nowhere to go. Most of it gets burned in the field, sending up thick white smoke over the plantations. Some of it gets dumped in rivers and left to rot in the shallows. For almost all of history, it has been worth exactly nothing. Just a bigger, wetter, heavier version of garden waste. This is how a farmer's headache becomes someone else's luxury item, with almost nothing changing hands in between, except effort. In Mukono district, Uganda, that transformation starts the moment a truck grinds into a collection yard, loaded with trunks that farmers were only too glad to be rid of. The trucks belong to a partner outfit whose entire job is logistics. Drivers spend their mornings crisscrossing farms across central Uganda, loading trunks that would otherwise just sit there decomposing,
and hauling them back before the day gets too hot. By mid-morning, the yard can hold dozens of stems at once.
Stacked in loose piles, some still trailing torn leaves, all of it smelling faintly sweet and slightly rotten at the same time. This is where the actual factory floor begins, not with machines humming, but with a pile of wet, decapitated plant stalks stacked higher than a person, steaming faintly in the morning heat. Wash cabinets holding pressure steady, give the keked ends another full pass.
First, the factory has to beat the clock.
A banana pseudostem is almost entirely water, and that water starts working against you the second the machete falls. Workers move fast, sorting the pile by hand, stem by stem, feeling for firmness, checking color, checking smell. Brains. A good stem still has some resistance when you press a thumb into it. A bad one gives way soft, almost spongy. Everything else, anything that sat in a farmer's field, a day too long.
Anything already softening at the core goes straight back out as compost before it ever gets near a blade.
A person can still catch a stem that's a few hours from spoiling, in a way no sensor here can yet match. Here's why that speed matters so much. Left too long in the yard, a trunk that looked perfectly usable at sunrise turns soft and sour by afternoon. The fiber inside loses its strength before it is ever extracted. The color shifts from pale cream to a dull gray-brown. The smell turns from grassy to fermented, almost like wet hay left in a closed room. That load isn't processed. It is rejected at the gate and sent back out as mulch. A full truckload of raw material, gone. Because nobody moved fast enough. Speed here isn't a nice to have. It's the line between fiber and compost.
And it's drawn in hours, not days. Then, the stem is opened. The stripping knife is catching at the second layer.
The stems that pass inspection go straight to the cutting station. Young men split each trunk in half lengthwise with machetes, exposing the pale layered core underneath. It looks almost like the inside of a leek. Ring after ring of fibrous sheath wrapped around the next. Those halves get fed into a cutting machine built to strip fiber from pulp. A set of rollers grips the stalk and pulls it through. Blades scrape along its length, stripping away the soft pulp. And out the other side come long, leathery ribbons, still dripping, still smelling faintly of the field. The machine does in seconds what hand stripping used to take an entire afternoon to accomplish.
Keep them feeding steady. Don't let the rollers run empty. Though the rollers still need constant feeding, one stalk after another, all day long.
Now, the machine separates the part nobody sees from the part everybody pays for. Not every ribbon is treated the same once it's out. The outer layers of the stem come off coarser and stiffer. Those get set aside for rope, matting, and rougher weaves. The inner layers are finer, paler, closer to silk in how they catch the light. Those get set aside for rope, matting, and rougher weaves. The inner layers are finer, paler, closer to silk in how they catch the light. 25-year-old Mustafa Amori works this line, feeding stem after stem through the blades, hour after hour, in a shed that smells of wet plant matter and hot metal. The machine never really stops. In a shed that smells of wet plant matter and hot metal. The machine never really stops. It's repetitive, physical, and loud. But it's also the exact hinge point where a waste stream turns into a supply chain. Here's the number that should stop you. Mechanically extracted banana fiber can reach tensile strengths of around 570 megapascals. That's higher than jute, higher than sisal. The two fibers that have anchored the world's rope and rug industry for 2 centuries. The plant nobody wanted is, gram for gram, stronger than the plants everybody's been using all along. Once extracted, the raw ribbons get rinsed to strip out the last of the sap and pulp still clinging to them. Without this step, the finished fiber would carry a sticky residue and a smell no dye could cover. Clean fiber gets hung on lines in open sun to dry, row after row of pale ribbons swaying together, exactly the way laundry dries. Except this laundry will end up as a rug 3,000 miles from here.
Vulnerable the entire time to the same rot that killed the rejected stems back at the yard. The drying line is just the extraction problem again.
Playing out in slow motion. After drying, the fiber still isn't ready for skin.
It is stiff, almost like coarse rope, so it goes through a softening stage next. Worked, beaten,
and combed through in repeated passes until it loses that stiffness and starts to behave closer to cotton than cordage. This step alone took years to get right. Early attempts either left the fiber too coarse to wear against skin or over-processed it and stripped away the very strength that made it worth using in the first place. Workers test each batch by hand, rubbing a length between their fingers, feeling for exactly the right give, not too rough, not too limp.
This is where the price changes. Not in the machine, but in the hands of the weaver.
Only once a batch passes that test does it move to dyeing. Dipped in vats of color. Worked through by hand until the shade takes evenly across every fiber. Then hung again to set before it fades or streaks. Some batches stay undyed altogether, left in their natural pale cream, which sells just as well to buyers, who want the fiber's origin visible rather than hidden under color. From there, it goes to a room of weavers who turn it into rugs, lampshades, woven mats, and increasingly, hair extensions. Marketed as a biodegradable alternative to synthetic.
Weaves that never break down once thrown away. The looms are simple and manual, worked by foot and hand together.
The same rhythm repeated thousands of times per piece. Pass the shuttle, beat the weft down tight, pass it back.
A single rug can take a full day of steady weaving to finish, and a weaver will stop mid-row to run a thumb across the
start before continuing. At the end of the line, the material that arrived wet,
heavy, and half-rotten leaves dry, folded, labeled, and priced like a finished home product.
Getting there takes one more pass. Finished pieces are trimmed and hand-finished at the edges. Loose threads clipped.
Corners squared, seams tucked flat. Each one gets checked, piece by piece, held up to the light to catch weak spots.
Or uneven weave before it's cleared to leave the building. Then it's folded, wrapped in paper,
and packed into crates for the journey out. By the time it leaves the workshop, almost nothing about it looks like banana anymore.
That's the part buyers are actually paying for. Not the banana, but the fact that nobody can recognize it anymore.
Checking the back of the weave, not just the front. Alongside the workshop, he also runs a small training program that teaches young Ugandans the entire process, from scratch. Sorting, extraction, softening, weaving. Turning a skill nobody used to need into one people can actually get hired for. He's also the one who drew a line that costs him money every month. Every product stays fully biodegradable. No synthetic thread blended in for strength or speed. Even when a cheap synthetic shortcut would move product faster and cheaper. The economics only work because of where the money starts. Farmers get $2.70 for every kilogram of dried fiber they deliver. Money that used to be a disposal cost, not a paycheck.
By the time that same kilogram is dyed, woven, finished, and boxed, it sells for many times what the farmer was paid.
And almost none of that markup travels back down the chain. One farmer group leader in Western Uganda liked the math.
Enough to buy his own extraction machine outright. He earned back the full cost within a year, just from stems his neighbors used to burn.
And by Muturi's own estimate, this one workshop still processes under 1% of the banana waste Uganda generates annually.
Multiply that gap by India, Brazil, and the Philippines, and almost everything this process could rescue is still burning in a field somewhere tonight. What does make it out the door ends up somewhere ordinary and somewhere far away at once. Rolled out under a coffee table, hung as a lampshade throwing warm light across a wall. None of it announcing where it came from or what it survived to get there. Nobody unwrapping a rug in London checks whether the fiber in it once stood in a Ugandan field with no future beyond a bonfire. The world's fashion industry already has a preview of where fiber like this can go, though it's worth being precise about which fiber. A Swiss brand spent years turning a baka, a banana relative grown only for its fiber, into a fabric called Banana Tex, now found in a Stella McCartney tote and a Balenciaga sneaker. Rare enough today that reviving the craft alone earned one weaver Japan's living national treasure honor.
Neither one starts as fruit farm waste the way Uganda's does. Both are grown on purpose for fiber alone. What they prove is that banana fiber can reach luxury shelves.
Whether waste like Uganda's ever makes that same climb is still an open question. Back in Mukono, none of that money has arrived yet. The rugs leaving this workshop sell for a fraction of what a Balenciaga sneaker commands.
And the farmers who supply the raw stems still see only a few dollars a kilogram. For the part of the process that makes the entire chain possible in the first place.
Most banana stems will still rot exactly where they fall, the same way they always have, feeding nothing but the ground underneath them.
But the ones collected fast enough, sorted in time, split, drawn through the blades before the water inside turns against them. They no longer disappear as waste. They leave the field as fiber, pass through rollers, sun, dye, and looms, and come back into the world as a rug, a lampshade, a length of cloth, as something almost nobody would guess ever started life as the wet, discarded trunk of a banana plant. The difference between the two piles is a matter of hours.